Hi there, this is Joan Greenfield. I'm an rdaef2, an educator, taught at Sacramento City College for 37 years, and run the J Productions Dental Seminars EF2 program. Myself, along with Barbara Blade, are also the founding members of the California Extended Function Association, operating for about 35 to 40 years to promote and help create change for dental assisting, predominantly for more advanced dental assisting like extended function. We put out a survey on SurveyMonkey in July of 2025, and these are some of the responses we got back from you. Thank you for participating. For those of you who did, we had a very good response. And here's some of the information that you provided to give us a better idea what's going on out there in EF2 land. So first of all, we got responses from all over California, not just large places, little tiny towns and big places in California. We got responses from J Productions Dental Seminars, Central Valley Dental Academy, Howard Healthcare Dental Specialties, Dental Career Institute, Expanded Function Dental Assisting Association, the FADE, Loma Linda University, UOP University, and even though the UCLA program is no longer in business, we did get some responses from students who had graduated from those programs as well. So we did ask where you live, we asked what program you went through, and so to give you an idea, very broad across the board responses, and we're very happy. We got about an 18% response of the number of EF2s that are currently licensed. About 18% of you responded, which is considered survey-wise to be an extremely good response. So our first question was, how long have you been an EF2? And you can see we gave people a range of recent graduate, 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, or 7 or more years. And you can look down here and see the percentages. Your new grads were about 8% of the respondents. 1 to 3 was almost 34%, 4 to 6 years was 28%, and 7 or more years was almost 30%. So we'll talk about how that plays out in regard to salaries shortly. The next question was, which of the following functions are you performing? And I think you can see from all the bright colors that go all the way across, the biggies are, of course, fillings and things to do with tissue management and final impressions. Also final impressions for tooth-borne appliances. The next one is post and core buildup, which we've been teaching in J Productions for some time now, but I know a lot of programs haven't done it yet. But that is now part of the scope of practice for EF2 legally. They listed it separately. We always saw it as a direct restoration. But if just recently came out of a program that didn't teach you that, they should be teaching you that now. Cementation of master and supplemental endodontic points. That was a little bit of a surprise. That came out to be almost 27% of the respondents that responded. So that's probably higher than I would have thought, that the number of people that are doing endo, but that's great. Oral cancer screening, myofunctional evaluation, and crown adjustment and adhere. And that also got changed from crown adjustment and cementation to crown adjustment and adhere, which gives you a little broader span of things you could do, because adhere means to place or to put on. So that could be bond or cement or screw on an implant or so forth. So those kinds of things are what you're doing out there. The next question was, what type of practice are you in? And the majority, you can see the top two there are single DDS practice, and multiple DDS practices really take up the bulk of almost 80%. And then corporate or partial corporate, and then we get down to a very smaller amount of primary care or Native American clinics and dental school. I think there were only 2 people that responded that apparently are employed in a dental school setting. The next question is, how do you do your patients scheduling done? And I found this really interesting. We gave you the choices to move from room to room with the DDS. I move into the room after the DDS and RDA or DA are done. I have my own room. I bounce around between multiple rooms, or a combination of the above. And by all but 56%, almost 57% said that it's a combination of all of those things. So there really doesn't seem to be any really strong emphasis on having your own room or how this is done. So it's interesting that I would think that more offices would utilize an individual to have their own room and own schedule so that the doctor just goes in and cuts the prep. But that appears not to be what's happening out there. And then our next question was, what other functions would you and or your DDS like to see added to EF2? And we listed cutting preparations for conservative adhesive-based fillings, which would be glass ionomer and composite. Fissurotomy, which is, opening up the fissures for sealant placement, suture placement, and final impressions for any reason. Suture placement and final impressions for any reason were actually in a bill that California Dental Association put through the legislature 2 years ago, which would have been added to the EF category, but that bill did not pass the legislature. So we're still kind of stuck in having to do tooth-borne wink-wink impressions for dentures and so forth. And then we did an open-ended question where you could do a fill-in. So other functions you and your dentist might like to see that we didn't list. And this question, we only got about 30% respondents out of that group. So it's statistically not correct, but it's interesting to see local anesthesia, of course, which we are currently working on, implant functions and components, which I'm very well aware of that you want to be doing a lot more to do with implants because everybody's doing implants. And the last one was laser tissue management for coronary bridge. We have tried for that several times. The hygienist pitch a fit. So I'm not sure unless CDA wants to add that's going to happen in any time in the near future. So the next part is that we asked several different questions in regard to salaries, and I'll talk a little more perhaps in another unit on how to determine your actual production value when you want to ask for a raise or when you want to negotiate a salary in the first place. But these were fill-ins, so it took me, several days to do a spreadsheet and go back and forth and do an analysis. The nice thing about the SurveyMonkey program is that I don't know who you are, but when I can look at all the questions one individual has asked so that we can compare where someone lives or works or what program they went through versus how much money they're making, what kind of benefits they get and so forth. So we can kind of combine and get a lot of really good information. So 2 of the individuals that answered this question, we threw their answer out because their answer was so far out of line with everybody else. So they were down in the $15 an hour or something. So if you were one of those people that said either $15 or $19 an hour, your survey was tossed out in regard to this particular question. So, and again, remember this is a range. So we had a range of salary for an EF2 from $28.97 to $75 an hour. I will tell you that there was only one person at $28.97. The rest, the lowest I believe was like $31 or $32. But this was the range, so the range that the information we got out there. Averaged, if you take all of those numbers and average them out based by the number of people that responded, the average salary was $42.48 per hour for all respondents. However, 40% of all respondents earned more than that. And their average was $52.28. So 40%, that's almost half of the individuals are making far more than the $42.48. In addition, 35% of all respondents also are receiving a performance-based bonus, meaning, and it was not clear because we didn't ask to define this, is the performance-based bonus based on your production as an EF2, or is it based on increased production by the entire office, perhaps because of the EF2? So that's another thing to look at, but I'm not sure we need to really get into something quite that far. The next question is, are you provided any of the following benefits? And we just mentioned that in addition. So remember, if the doctor is paying you any of these benefits, that comes out of their pocket as well. So in addition to the salary that you're receiving for your efforts, and hopefully some bonuses. Paid vacation 1 week was 23%. Paid vacation 2 weeks was 42%, which is higher. Paid vacation for more than 2 weeks was 30%. Retirement contribution or profit share was almost 72%. Healthcare insurance 57%. A bonus based on production 35 or 36% here, and paid continuing education was 42%. So that it also appears that most of you are receiving some significant benefits. Okay, so our last question that we kind of asked in this area was, how valued or appreciated do you feel in your current practice? Extremely valued, 36%. Somewhat valued, 54%. Not valued, almost 9%. Taken advantage of about just a little over 2%. Now, this is a question that is asking for someone's feelings or emotions. And so maybe that day that they took the survey, they were crabby and got in an argument with somebody or whatever. But I guess I would also ask you, what is your value to the practice? Yeah, it's great if you have great skills as an EF2, but do you get along with others? Do you show up on time? Do you stay off your phone? Do you put out maximum effort? Do you help others? Have you ever complimented your doctor in front of a patient on the procedure they're doing, so forth like that? So what kind of other things are you contributing that might help you feel better or more appreciated by showing appreciation to others? Would be a question. And then our last thing that I wanted to talk about is just kind of a funny thing. And remember now, I was a dental assistant back in 1965. Most of you weren't born yet. And in those days, it was, women had very few rights in the first place. So it was a tough thing. And there was a lot of sexual harassment and very low pay and so forth in those days. So things are much, much better, although proportionately inflation, of course, has made an effect on how much we make. So, a long time ago, in regard to relationships, it used to be a saying that said you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. And that was a joke in that there was an old fairy tale that there's a frog that says, if you kiss me, I'll turn into a handsome prince. So are you falling for that? Okay. So today we'd say you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you may have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince or princess, depending on whether you have a male or female boss, employer, or supervising dentist. Again, what are the effort you're putting out? I know that a lot of my former graduates have found it necessary to move to a couple different practices to finally find that place that really fits for them, where they feel appreciated, where they're paid well, where they're allowed to do all their functions. And sometimes, again, that comes back to the kissing a lot of frogs before you find your prince. So I'm going to stop here so that that's all I need to say for the moment. I will do another section on how to figure out your own actual monetary value by figuring out your production. And that could be utilized for a raise or showing your boss, because your boss probably doesn't even know this information either. So thanks for listening.